Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host,
Brett
Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
the Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I am your host, Brett Gilliland. Today, I've got Rick Torrison with me. Rick, how you doing?
And I'm great. How are you, sir? It's good to be here.
I'm
Honored
good.
and blessed.
Awesome, man. Well, I love having you here. Looking forward to chatting about all sorts of great stuff. I've got a lot of notes here, man. We got a lot in common here. Some stuff we're going to talk about, which I'm excited about. But you've got a book coming out on May 7th called Born Limitless, Crushing Limiting Beliefs, Cultivate on Infinite Mindsets, and Unleash Your True Potential. So we're going to chat about that, amongst other things. You are a certified success coach and do the John Maxwell coaching with John Maxwell. If you haven't heard of them, then, well, I don't know why you haven't heard of him. He's amazing.
Yeah,
but you help passionate and
that's
growth-minded leaders walk in the power of their own identity and have over 25 years of experience of doing that. So we're excited, man. But before we get started, Rick, what has helped make you the man you are today?
Well, man, that's a great question. So can I flip the script real quick before we get into me?
Absolutely.
If I can ask you a question, and maybe your listeners already know this, but it helps me in my journey. So I'm passionate about helping people overcome limiting beliefs, right? And how those can put a ceiling on our lives, a limit on our lives. And I've looked at your podcast, your journey, the things that you do, your passion to help people kind of walk into their greatness and who they are and believe in themselves and anything's possible. For you to get to where you are, this would be my question for you, and this will help me. We all have limiting beliefs. The reality is we all have areas of our lives where we're like, man, I'm just not sure, right? What has been a limiting belief that you've had to overcome or conquer, that you've had to deal with in your life, or maybe you still deal with that you've worked through or working through? Because I like to kind of know where those things are in relationships. So I'm curious.
Well, how much time do you have?
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's funny.
It's your show, brother. How much time do you have?
Yeah. So it was funny. So here's the question I wrote down. So I'll answer your question, but I wrote this down. I said, I call it your roommate. Okay. So I call this limiting beliefs person your roommate. It all lives right up here in our head. Right. And I think anybody listening to this, I would assume we all have the roommate that talks to us, right? That voice that speaks in our heads. It's untrue. Everything it tells us, by the way, it's physically untrue. But yet we still believe it. And we have these unlimiting beliefs. So I would say the thing that's helped me the most of anything that I've accomplished, whether that's in business, personally, professionally, financially, I would say it's having the limiting belief, but not believing it. Choosing. I use that word all the time. Choosing to not believe it and almost talk trash to it and say, look, I hear what you're saying, but you don't understand. Like, I'm going to show up. I'm going to do the work. The circuits of success are your attitude, your belief system, your actions ultimately get results, right? So if I can do those things, if I can have a great attitude, I can believe in what I believe in. So whatever comes into my heart, comes into my mind, I spend time thinking about it. I pray about it. I go to journal about it. When those things come to reality, now it's just watch out, take action, and you'll get the result, period.
Yeah, so good.
That's me, man.
I took notes. I was taking notes. I love that. I appreciate that. That's speaking into my world and where I live. And I just love to hear that. You're right. We're definitely aligned in how we view things and stuff. So thank you for just allowing me to ask that question as we get started. I didn't mean to throw you off there.
No,
so what was the question you had?
What's really helped you become the man you are today? Obviously, you don't just wake up and every time people listen to this, I start with the same question every time, and it's on purpose because there's a lot of things that I can't find in research that I don't know about, right? Everybody's got a Pandora's box inside them, and you only let certain people in there, right? So you can be as open and about your journey and where you've been. I have no idea what that journey is, and so I always tell people, share, man. What's made you the man you are today?
Man, that's so good. Well, I appreciate that. I'll give you the Cliff Note condensed version of kind of the journey for me. We share a homeland, so I grew up in the Illinois area. Right. So Chicago area is where family is. All my family's still up in the Midwest, Illinois, Chicago, Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Indiana. So all Ohio. Right. But I chased a girl to Houston, Texas 35 years ago, caught her. Actually, she caught me. And we just celebrated 33 years of marriage.
Nice.
Two amazing
Congrats.
kids. So thank you. Yeah, it's been I share that because I start kind of there, and I'll bring this back because it's been a big part of my story, my journey in my marriage, my kids. I've got two adult kids, a 29-year-old and a 25-year-old. By the way, my son, well, this won't air, so this will be good. He's proposing tomorrow,
Oh.
not tomorrow, Saturday of this week, to his girlfriend, and so we're all going to be there. So that's an exciting thing. That's a
That's
story
awesome.
and journey in itself. But I share that because the man that I am today, and the man that I will say this, and the man that I'm becoming, I believe we are, and we're not yet. And so that's, you hear people talk about that should be constant learners, always looking at ways to grow. And I don't say that lightly. I've walked into that and realized that that's the best way to live. And it gives me the best perspective when I look at the lives and experiences and journeys as opportunities to learn, right? And to grow. And so I didn't believe that initially. I struggled. So I was born a fourth child to my mom in California, actually, and she was not married. She had three children before me. Two were aborted. This is early 50s. The third was given to adoption, and the fourth was me, and she decided to keep me. That was all of those choices were at the ultimatum of the man she was with, who kept saying, them or me, them or me, them or me. And the fourth one, and I get the same way, when I came into the picture, she was done, and she said, I'm choosing my son. And he left. He walked. Don't know him, never met him, still don't to this day. I'm 60 years old, and I don't have I've got some stories and some stuff. My mom and I would talk a little bit about it throughout our journey and stuff, but I was raised by my mother and my grandmother, two amazing women, both worked really hard. And then my uncle came in the picture and raised me in the early, late 60s, early 70s. And he was a hippie. Great man. But if you have any concept of a hippie, put that on my uncle. And that was him. But he was a good man. He coached my little league, but it was just an interesting world growing up. And so my mom worked a lot. My grand worked a lot. I tell people I was a latchkey kid before there were latchkeys, right? And so I took care of myself at a very young age. I had to learn and grow and make choices and decisions that probably most kids at a young age didn't have to do.
Yeah.
I'll share that. And then one other significant thing that happened to me early in my life, I share some of this in the book Born Limitless, is that I was abused by a babysitter, very young age, right? And I share all these things because all of these experiences in our lives are real, right? They happen. They come with emotion. They come with feeling. They come with energy. And we then interpret those experiences a certain way. We define them when they happen to us, right? And they mark us. And all of those experiences, good and bad, trauma and joy, that we then interpret or define those emotions and feelings, we then have to attribute a belief to them. What is it I believe about that? What is it I believe about me? What is it I believe about women or life or relationship or family? All of our beliefs come from the way we interpret the world and the experiences that we go through, right? And I know it's not that simple, but I think, I try to keep things as simple as possible. Those beliefs then that we take on are based on a real experience and understanding and emotion, but they're not always based in truth. The belief is not always based in the truth. And I'll come back to that. So then I live my life around these beliefs. Beliefs demand actions or behaviors, right? All of our behaviors, our actions, what we do, whether we think about it or not, stems from a belief that we have about something. So we act a certain way. We behave a certain way. All of our behaviors, all of our actions produce some sort of outcome, fruit. Could be good fruit, could be bad fruit, but they produce an outcome. What I've realized, and I share the front of my story and the back of my story because the front of my story marked me, and I began to create a belief system about my worth, my identity, my value, and a belief system about females and women. Although my mother and my grandmother had a very different perspective that they showed me, this encounter began to shape how I believed about relationships and women and my own identity. No one knew about it. I never told anybody about it. So it sat inside of me and started to form beliefs. Then I didn't have a dad. Well, back then, most people had full families, mom, dad, and kids. So then that was a belief system. Why don't I have a dad? I remember making stories up that my dad was killed in the army. He was in the war and was killed. Well, he wasn't, but that's how I could justify to the world of kids why I didn't have a dad at the house when I was growing up, right? So all of these beliefs forced me then to live a certain manner, to act in a certain way, to have certain behaviors that then gave me certain outcomes. And as we grow over our lives, those behaviors that may have served us at one point no longer serve us, yet we don't change them. We don't recognize them. And now they're not serving us any longer, and the outcomes are getting more and more damaging or hurtful. It's like a ceiling that we put on our lives.
Yeah.
And so I share that because that's kind of the framework I talk about in the book. It's really understanding where does the fruit of our life come from? And if we don't like it, what do we change? Typically, and you know this because you've worked in this area a lot, we try to change our behaviors, systems, and processes, do better, be better, think better, act better, right? And so if I'm strong-willed, which I am, I can do pretty well for a while.
Yep.
But I typically, and I don't know if you found this, I typically end up back where I was or worse. Somewhere down the road, something happens that triggers me back into this place, old reality, and the behavior doesn't sustain itself. And I've realized if we don't address the belief behind the behavior, sustaining a behavioral change to get new outcomes is very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah.
But we don't think about it that way, right? Does that make sense?
It does, and that's why we're so locked in. We're going to be locked in this whole podcast because you're talking about the beliefs and the actions and the results, right? Which are the circuits of success. And the way I talk about them, if you don't have those four: attitude, beliefs, action, results, why it's a circuit is the light bulb won't shine, right? We take one of those away, the lights go off, right? And
that's
so
good.
For you, I'm fascinated by this discussion on of choice. As I said it earlier, choice is, I believe you made a choice. So there are people that grew up in your situation, right? You're obviously not the only person that this has happened to. Probably fewer, right, than most.
Right, sure.
But there are some people that end up, and let's even talk about it from a situation. People that grow up with money, and then the kid is dirt poor and never amounts to anything. The kid that grew up with money that goes out and changes the world, right? The person that grew up homeless that became super successful. The person that grew up homeless that's living on the streets somewhere, right? It's amazing where life can go. And you've chosen by your actions and your beliefs to be married for 33 years when you were one of four that made it, right? That made it with your mom. What do you think it was about you that chose to go here versus go to a really, really, really dark spot that you could have gone to?
Yeah. So I did go to those dark places, right? It's not like I avoided them.
Okay.
Right. And that's part of the journey of how we make a choice. The more we go into those dark places and we get confronted, right? But I think there's it's so right on, but let me maybe back this idea of choice up, because sometimes there's I work a lot of coaching. I do a lot of one-to-one group coaching, have for several decades, work with a lot of people at various levels of life, from CEOs to struggling entrepreneurs to people who are just beginning in relationships, right? And what I've realized is whether it's right or not, it's real. Here's another thing I'll say, there's real things, right? This is real. It happened. It's an experience, but it may not be based on a truth, right? And so there's distinguishing that. And so there's a lot of people that don't feel they have a choice, So when we talk about this, Brett, when we get into this idea of choice, well, I made a choice, and this, it's not that simple. We don't even realize there's a choice to be made. So what is it that triggers the opportunity that says I have a choice, right? And typically what I've found is, one, it's those dark places, and it's usually at the beginning of a dark place. The longer we're in those dark places, the more they become what I call normal. So these limiting beliefs that we have, right? We hold them for so long that they become normal. We think this is how life is. Why does the woman who's been abused by men seem to always find her way back to abusive men? Because it's what she's known. It's not that she doesn't want something else, but what she's known, what's familiar, what she's always been used to, what she defined as love was an abusive relationship. And you and I would go, well, that's crazy. And there's this and there's that. And she goes, no, all I know is this. You can tell me all day long, but this is what I know. And so what I've realized is we've got to have somewhere a pattern interrupt where this something comes in and gives us an opportunity or a chance or a choice or challenges us or causes us to think that there might be something different. Now, in that goes back to what you said. I still have to choose. I still have to choose that alternative. But without that alternative being there, without someone saying, because this I tell my people I coach all the time, I said, listen, this limiting belief that has created a normal in your life, that you're saying this is normal. I can't, I won't, I'll never. This is what it's always been.
Yep.
What if, this is what I challenge you with, what if that normal, the thing you call normal, what if it's not normal? What if there's a different normal for you that you're missing? And that normal that you're living in is actually a ceiling on your life, keeping you from what you were created to do and be, right? From the purpose, from that destiny, from that legacy that's truly inside of you that you maybe dreamt about at one point or thought about or dreamed about, because you talk about helping people actualize dreams, right? What if that normal you're living in isn't your normal? If I can get them to just say, I hadn't thought about that. I wonder, well, what if it's not? Man, if they will step there, everything changes. The opportunity and everything changes. But they've got to believe that maybe what they're living in, that they've accepted as their normal life, this is as good as it's going to get. Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And so,
when I
think about choice, so let me really answer quickly. So there were some people in my life that challenged me basically with that question. And I was like, this is how life has always been. They said, what if it's not? And what if it doesn't have to be? Yeah. I thought that would be awesome, right? And for me, it was a faith journey, right? So it was my father-in-law. So I told you I chased a girl to Texas. I did. And she was a woman of faith. I'd never been in church in my life. Never stepped foot, never thought about it, was never part of my world. Wasn't for it, wasn't against it, didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pursuing this girl. I get to Houston, Texas. Her dad is an amazing entrepreneur, started businesses, 57 years in business, just amazing man, really wise. But he's also a man of faith. And first 30 days I'm in Texas, right? Just trying to figure this out. I'm going after this girl like, I'm going to conquer this thing. He gets in my face and he says to me, Rick, he said, seemed like a really good guy. I love my daughter. If you're really serious about a relationship with my daughter, and he's in my space, like he's right here.
He's
right?
in his personal space.
He is all in it, right? And says, if you really want a relationship with my daughter, you need to get your life right with the Lord. And I guess was like, yes, sir. I was like, okay, but honestly, this was my thought was, I am the Lord, so we're good, right? It wasn't that rude, but it was like, I've always been the master of my own destiny. I've had to be responsible. I'm in charge. I can do this. I just say that because that was one of those provoking moments where I thought, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? Who is that? What would that do? And so I began a journey of discovering what it meant to me. And that's another conversation, but that took me on a road. That was one of those markers that said, what if there's something different? What if there's something more? What if you were destined and purposed for something other than what you think is in front of you? And so that provoked me enough. And you said this, I still had to choose, but I chose to pursue that thought. And it changed everything.
I love that. And I love the pattern interrupt. I mean, that's so profound. I wrote that down. I'm gonna have to journal on that one because it is true, man. We need to interrupt the pattern, right? We need to interrupt the new normal or the normal to make a new normal. And I call it your comfort zone callus. And your comfort zone's this big and needs to get to this big. Well, you're going to form a callus. If you just like, hey, instead of going and working out, I'm just going to go sit on the couch and then I'm going to do it again tomorrow and then tomorrow. And then you build this callus of now I can't even walk up a flight of stairs. And again, that's a choice. And so how do we break out of that? You don't
realize it, right? I'm sorry, but it's a choice, but you don't even realize you're making the choice because it has become so comfortable, so natural that I never walk up the stairs. Well, why don't you walk? Because I don't.
Yeah.
And you don't even think about it anymore. And then we get stuck in this place and that ceiling then gets put over our lives and we settle.
Yeah.
We settle for something so much less. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was like, man, that's so true. And we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Oftentimes.
So what is, how do we get out of our comfort zone? How do we bust through it? So the person listening to this knows that, like, well, no shit, Rick.
Yeah,
I know I know I need to get off the couch and go walk the flight of stairs, but how?
Yeah.
How do I do that?
That's a great question. And I think principally it's probably universally true and the same for everyone. But how it manifests, how you have to engage it is going to be unique to you. But I would say it all starts with this. And it goes back to really what you were saying. It all begins with me making a choice, deciding I'm going to challenge something. I'm going to allow someone to challenge me. To be able to get out of our comfort zone, we first have to allow someone to say you're in one.
Yep.
And to receive that without being offended, defensive, or justifying it. And be able to receive a challenge, a provocation, whether it comes with love or it comes with aggression, because we get it a lot of different ways, right? People will say things through anger and being mean to us about our position or posture, where we're living and how we're doing things, or people will provoke us with love. Either way, it starts with our willingness to entertain that and say, well, am I in the comfort zone? And here's the other thing I tell people. You may discover you are. You may go through all the questions and you may come away and go, but I like it and I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
But now you're in control because you're choosing to stay in a place that you have full mastery of and control. You know you're choosing to stay in the comfort zone.
That's right.
That's a totally different thing from being in one and not realizing you're in one and there's something outside greater that you're not experiencing and you don't even know it. But I want people to have the freedom to choose to say, no, I like the comfort zone. I've worked hard to get here and I'm just fine. Now, if they give me permission, I have access in their lives, like I gave other people to me. I submitted to be provoked or questioned, not to be ruled or authority to say, you're going to do this, but to say, can I challenge you, Rick? Can I ask you a question why you're believing that or where that came from without you getting frustrated or defensive? Are you willing to consider it?
Yep.
Right. And so that's the first to me is getting someone to consider where they're at and what that looks like. Here's the other thing I'll tell you. It's kind of the other end because I build these roadmaps. I help people build roadmaps from where they are to where they want to be. Right. So part of the other thing that gets us out is I also would ask questions about their vision, their destiny, their objective, a future, a goal, a desire, whether it's a life vision, purpose, or whether it's something immediate that they want to do, something they've dreamt about, something they desire. We will never get out of where we are if we can't have a clear picture of where we want to go. I give people this example. I'm in Houston, Texas. There's over 4,800 Mexican restaurants. I love Mexican food, but there's thousands of them. And I want to go to the best Mexican food place in Houston, and I have a GPS. I don't put best Mexican food on my GPS as my destination. Why? Because I'm going to get everyone's opinion in 1,000 destinations. If I want to go to the best Mexican food in Houston and I know that it's Hugo's, because I believe that, I have to put in Hugo's and the address. It's the only way I'm going to get there. If I've never been there and I know that's where I want to go, I can't just say a Mexican restaurant and hit route. It's not going to happen. So if I can help people get a clear picture, either of a short-term objective or a long-term life objective, and really clarify to where they can see it, taste it, feel it, man, getting them to move becomes much easier because now they have an objective. I'll future pace them. I'll help them stand and say, what would it be like if you actually did that or accomplished that? What would it feel like? What would it smell like? Who would be there with you? What would that allow you to do? Man, when they start thinking about that, the desire to reach that outcome, whatever it is, man, it just starts elevating.
Yeah.
And if I can get them to elevate, I can get them to actuate, to move towards that and build a map to get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's in line. I'm pulling out my journal here. So I've got my own journal, Achieving a Future.
I love that. I saw that online, ordered it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, man. Thank you. And so, but one of the exercises on your Focus 90, which is on page 11, is one of them is, what are you going to start doing, stop doing, and continue doing? But when you do that, right, and this isn't like Brett invented this idea. I just happen to put it all in one spot, right?
Yes.
So,
absolutely.
It says, though, when accomplished, what will be improved in my life?
Yeah.
And so when you look at that, and you can see this on my mic here, the future greater than your past, helping our clients achieve a future greater than your past, which is in line with yours is, I think what I saw online, your best is yet to come, your past, your present, your future. So it's in line with your future greater than your past. How do we do that? How do we achieve that future? But how do you in the future know what will it look like and how will it feel? Like, what's that process
Right.
like and what you take people through?
Yeah, so that's so good. And it's, it's really personalized because all of our stories are unique. Everybody that's listening, I would just encourage you, you all have a very unique story and it's real and it's yours and it
Yeah.
needs to be embraced and understood, but it also doesn't have to define your future. One of the things I tell people is your past was never meant to define your future. It's meant to inform it and refine it, but not define it.
Mm.
But we've allowed our past to become the lens by which we view our future. And I tell people, if you put your hands up like this and you're looking at something, you can see it. You just can't see it clearly. And
So
until we
true.
clean the lenses, we can't really see our future clearly of what we want to do. And so to answer that question, really, there's a process I help walk people through. There's two things. One, we've got to identify limiting beliefs. What is it that's keeping you from that? But that very statement, what's keeping you from that? If we don't define the that, whatever that is first, like you just said,
Yep.
define a future, right? Dream about it. Don't worry about if it's true or not. Let's just dream about it. Let's do what if? Let's put ourselves there. What would that be like? What's the benefit to you? What would you gain? How would it impact your family, your life, and future? So I'm going to help them dream. And we're going to put that out there and get it specific. The next thing we need to do is we need to set up a current reality. It's going back to the GPS. Everything for me is this roadmap in GPS. Go back to Hugo's story. Now I know it's Hugo's and I've got my address on Westheimer and I put it in there. I can't just hit route. We don't do this anymore because it does it for us already.
Yeah.
But you have to put in a current location. Where am I starting from? What's my current reality? And we own it. We don't go, oh my gosh, I'm here. This is so terrible. No, this is where I'm at. It's my current reality. It's just truth. I'm here. Here's where I want to be. Once I've done that, what have I created? I've created a gap.
Yep.
Now I know where I am. I'm honest about it. No condemnation, no criticism. It's just, this is where I'm at. It's just true. Why I got here, how it doesn't matter. This is where I am. Here's where I want to be. Oh, great. Once I've got them to get those two places, then the question becomes, okay, how do we build a roadmap? How do we get there? So the very next thing I talk about is motivation. And you already mentioned this a little bit, whether directly or indirectly. It's if I achieve what I want to achieve, what's my internal and external motivation, right? What's the motivation? Why will it matter if I achieve it? And that's got to be tangible. You've got to, this, feelings and emotions are the most powerful things that we have.
Yeah.
And they were created part of us. They're not to be pushed aside or downplayed. We were meant to feel and have emotion.
Yep.
The challenge is how we interpret our feelings and emotions that cause us to go down certain roads.
Yeah.
But the feeling
Can I
and
interrupt real
emotion
quick?
is powerful. Yeah, jump in.
So I think what's funny is I was smiling when you said that because I've been in wealth management for almost 23 years, right? So I've met with hundreds of people and talked to thousands of people and talked about money, and it's usually never a concept people just are openly wanting to talk about, right? But I think it's funny because everything you're saying is exactly what we've been doing, at Visionary Wealth Advisors, and what I've done my whole career is you're here today at point A, you want to get to point Z, right? But now to talk about what you're talking about too is our limiting beliefs, and what you think is normal doesn't mean it's normal. How do I know that? Because I've seen people retire. I've helped people retire, right? I've seen people, unfortunately, when their lives are over, right? And what we go through, what the family goes through. And we've done it time and time and time again. And so whether that's through wealth management, whether that's through a coach like you, I think I empower people listening to this. Find that person in your life that's going to take you off the treadmill of life and have you slow down and ask you the tough questions that you're not going to ask yourself.
Brett, you're the trusted Sherpa.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean, when you think about it, it's someone who's been down that path. It may not be the same path, but they've been somewhere. And I'm coming back and saying to you, I know it doesn't feel possible. And I would love all of your listeners to understand, I don't care where you are. You may be very successful here, yet you really struggle here. Relationships are terrible, but business is great, or the other way around. I'm saying it doesn't have to be that way.
No.
Right? There can be success, significance, however you want to define that, in these areas of our lives. But we've got to be able to break through. And so you're exactly right. And so if I go back, so we know where we are, we know where we want to be, we tap our motivation. You got two motivations. What is the benefit of getting there? Tangible. I think the other one that's very powerful, but it can't sustain us, is what happens if you don't? What's the loss to you, the cost of not making it? Typically, fear is a motivator that gets our butt out of the seat, It's just not a place we can live and keep moving. It's not sustainable to live at this level of fear being my motivation to move, but it gets us moving. So we have to tap into both the fear and the future, right? The possibility.
Don't you think it's important to like get excited about? I mean, the
Yes.
answer to this is yes. I already know the question. The answer to this is yes. But for me, what I'm doing this year is I'm trying to create this. I have my goals with me everywhere I go. So here's the 2024, and I'm calling it experience, like experiencing new things in life, right?
Yes.
And
that's your word for the year, experience.
Experience, and so just
I love
2024 experiences, and it's like just say yes, create experiences. I reached out to some college buddies. We have not been together in 20 something years, all of us together. And I said, you know what, this is stupid. So today I reached out to him. We've already got it scheduled in June. We're going to get together and have our little reunion,
That's
right?
awesome.
We're going to go to the Cardinal games. We're going to play golf. Today I've got to go up the stairwell right over here 22 times. I'm going to climb the World Trade Center today. And that's just a self-imposed thing. And I think for our listeners is challenge yourself to do something that's unique and different. So this year for me, one of my experiences, do something I've never done.
So good.
Every month. Started in December, did a polar plunge in the ocean. January went skeet shooting. I've never been skeet shooting. Today I'm going to climb the World Trade Center. And then
And
March,
so why is that good? Tell me, what does that do? I love that. So help everyone who's listening. So why bother? Why are you doing that? So what? That's cool, but what's it matter?
I want to be able to do a lot of things. I don't want to look back on life and have regret. Yeah. And now will I have regret because I didn't climb 22, flights of stairs? Absolutely not. But I think it gives people depth and breadth and more conversation pieces and helping people. If my desire is to help people achieve a future great in your past, and that's our firm's mission and my mission, then don't I have to go out and take action and do things that are helping me achieve a future great in your past?
So good.
And so that's why I do that. Again, 99 out of 100 people could care less if I climb 22 flights of stairs, right? I may be the only one that cares. But for me, it's the experience and it's creation of depth for me.
I love that. Creation of depth. I wrote that. That's really good. What it is I tell people, don't look for what other people are doing. Look for the principle that underlines what they're doing, because principles are truths that can be applied in different manners for different people. But what's the truth that underlies it? And that's why I asked that question. So it isn't about walking the stairs or skeet shooting or any of that. That's what you're doing. The principle behind it is take a step outside of what I would normally do. Risk, take one step. And I would love everyone to know the step doesn't have to be huge.
Yeah.
It's just take a step. And then you said this, and I think celebrate it. Don't go, oh, it's just, it wasn't really a big deal. And I just, what everybody does. No, stop it. Yeah. Celebrate it. If no one else does, it doesn't matter. Celebrate that you took a step you hadn't taken before. I don't care what the step is, because what it does is it tells your subconscious, your psyche, it tells your whole frame, I can do something different.
Yep.
I can do something better. I can do something greater. One step leads to another step, but we have to take the first step. So here's where I would go back to. So why don't people take the first? It sounds so simple. You and I would go, man, this is simple. I picked up the phone, called my friends. It was so easy. For some people, it's scary. And I'm like, why is it scary? And that goes back to the limiting beliefs. Somewhere in their mind, they believe that someone's going to reject them or say no, or that they're going to fall on their face and the world's going to judge them. And then they'll just be what their parent always said they were going to be. I mean, there's so many storylines of simple things in our lives that happened that marked us, that created a belief that's now driving whether we can take that step or not.
Yeah.
So what I walk people through is if you struggle in taking that step, what's the challenge for you? What's going on in your head? What are you telling yourself that's keeping you? And that's the other part of the framework. So where you are, where you want to be, motivation, but the work comes in when we identify the resources we have, the resources we need, and then the obstacles that keep us from getting there. Those are internal and external. External ones we can't control. Economy. You live in this world. You're helping. If you were helping me in my financial planning, you're saying, okay, listen, I can't predict the future, but let's be prepared. These are things that we can see in patterns that are external, outside of your control, that may impact what we do here.
So I'm going to answer your. Sorry to interrupt. I'm going to answer your question that you asked me to start the podcast, and it's funny because you just used the word obstacles, and I started laughing there because I made I like to create things. I'm fairly creative, but I'm an only child. And so when I was a kid, I was bored all the time. We didn't have iPhones and all that stuff. And so I would create stuff. And I found out a way to create T-shirts on a piece of paper, and then you could iron on what you want to do. So you could print it, right, and iron it. And so I did that. And so I wrote, I don't know what grade I was in. I was probably 15 years old. But I made a shirt that said, I smile at my obstacles.
Oh man! Seriously?
And so, yeah, I did, and God, I wish I could find that T-shirt. I'm sure it's long gone, been destroyed and thrown away. But as an only child, your parents keep a lot of your stuff. That's what I find. But anyway,
yes.
And so I don't even know where I was going with that, but I think that's that mindset we have to have is I smile at my obstacles, because success doesn't go here to straight up the line without obstacles, right? So we have to smile at them. And we have to be okay with them. And when they happen, say, this is one of those obstacles. Don't have to like it.
It's so good.
But I got to do something about it.
And that's the journey, right? That I think we both take people on, you in a financial world, because there's going to be obstacles. This isn't going to be easy. It's going to hurt a little bit to put some money here, to take a risk over here, to set aside here on something for the future that isn't tangible right now. And can you trust that future? And, so I've got beliefs that go, well, wait a minute, Brett, what about now? And what if a need comes up? And then you're telling me to say, right? And so there's these belief systems, and it's okay. Own your belief. It's okay. That belief is not bad to have. Yep. The question is that we ask people, so how is that belief actually serving you towards the vision, the destination you want? You've got to believe. Yeah. Here's your destination. Here's your belief. Is this belief serving you to get to that destination, or isn't it? And if they say, well, it's not serving me, okay. You can keep it, but it's not serving you. Or would you like to change it?
Yeah.
I'd like to change it. Okay. What belief would you have to put over this one that now will serve you towards your destination? Well, I would have to believe this. Okay. Let's start right there.
Yeah.
Let's start with that belief. Now let's begin to declare it. And let's talk about what it looks like. What action now, if you're going to believe that instead of what you did, what's the actions now that would look like if you had that belief? How would you live your life differently? So now they have to play it out before they ever do it and realize, it's not as scary as I thought. It's not as hard. I would just do this. I would change this little thing. Okay. So when are you going to do this or change this little thing? Well, I can do that next week. Okay. When next week? Wednesday. Great. So next Wednesday at 2:00, you're going to do this. Yes, sir. And then we do it, and I tell them, you need to celebrate that. You just took an old belief that didn't serve you, replaced it, took one step, accomplished it. You've never done that before. Yeah. Celebrate that.
Yeah. So it reminds me of the book QBQ, Question Behind the Question. I don't know if you've ever read that book or not, but it's a great book.
Yeah.
Old, I don't remember. I was probably 20-something when I read that, but it makes me think too, and I'm sure you do this with people, but is what is that belief, and what are you going to do to get past it? But I always ask myself why, like 7 times. Lucky number 7, right? So why? Yeah. Why do you want to do that? Blah, 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 blah. Well, why? Why do you want to do that? Well, right? And it's usually what I have found, that 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th time, that's where you find it, right? That's where the key to Pandora's box I mentioned earlier opens up, and now we've hit something, right?
Can I share a thought with you on that? Because I'm 100% the same way. The why gets to a source. Do you know what the most powerful question, once you get to that 6th, 7th time where it opens up what you just said, it opens that place up? You know what then becomes the most powerful question? What? Why? Blah, blah, blah. So you get this. What would happen if you did that? What would that look like? What would that do for you? Where would that put you? Because why questions are backward looking. And they're good because they cause us to stir up and get to a current place. And then once we get to that current place, shift the question, say, okay, here I've got it. This is why. Now, what would happen if I actually believe that? How would my life look different? What would change in my family, my finances, my future? Now I'm taking that why that brought me to the current fulcrum, and now I'm looking forward what? And I chunk them out to this place of, what would that look like? Oh, yeah, this is what it would be. Okay. And then I chunk them back. So if that's the what, that's where it is. How are we going to get there? We now got it. Let's bridge that sucker, right? Let's go get it. Because now their energy, emotion, mindset is excited.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, oh, okay.
Well, and then you set
Anyways,
the win, and then you set the win to it,
yes,
right?
and then you, and
WHEN,
then that's
right?
the,
And then when is that
yes.
going to happen? You got to have a date. You got to have an action step to get there, and that's that's critically important. So let's talk
Yes.
about this for a second. So
Talk about that.
I want
That's
to dive
awesome.
into your
Thanks
book,
for that.
but I used to think you had to have a big step, right? Like, oh, I'm going to start exercising. Okay, I got to do, these things in 7 days a week, and then I got to go run a marathon, and then I got to go, all this crap, right? And what I found is I would do it, and then I would stop because it was so damn tough. But when I started to realize and starting to believe, started to believe, a lot about beliefs today, that it takes little steps, boring steps, but it's doing it and showing up every single day, even when you don't want to, and making that a commitment to yourself. That's when big stuff actually happens.
Yeah.
So when you hear that, thoughts?
Well, man, there's not much you can add to that, right? It's truth. What you're stating is truth, but we think we've got to jump this gap in one fell swoop. Like, here I am, there I got to be. So what's the big thing I can do to get me there? And I'm like, and the most successful people in the world, they kill themselves with boredom.
Yeah.
We think we got to success by some magical thing that we did or some thing that just happened. And the tipping point, Malcolm Gladwell talks about the tipping point.
Yeah.
He talks about all these things that happen, but then we see it go, oh my gosh, this just happened, as if it's some miracle that took place that caused this to happen. But the reality was, we didn't see all of the things, the discipline, the daily cost and sacrifice and choice and things that we did that led to this tipping point, and then all of a sudden it explodes. We just want the tipping point.
Yep.
Right. And so I just, again, for me, you said beliefs, a lot of it goes back to, why do we do that? I asked that first why. Why are we stuck there? Well, because I believe something. I believe that the best way to get there is this giant leap. Okay, why do you believe that? And that's the why. And I get to them, start thinking, and say, okay, now this is what you believe. Now, is that the question? Because is that true? Is what you say you believe actually true, or is it a lie? Are you believing something that isn't even based in truth? It's real, but it's not based in the truth.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then what would be the truth? Let's replace the lie, the limiting belief, with a limitless one. Right? Let's replace that.
Dog's
and
barking.
If we can
See, the dog even agrees with that one.
Man, he got excited. Sorry about that. Somebody just came out to the door.
Yeah. That's the beauty of podcasts. I love it, man. I love it. Let me ask you a question. So again, we've talked 1,000 things about belief today. Let me ask you this. So what do you believe that if I wrote down my goals, like I have you do every single day in this journal, if you write down your goals every day, you have your goals written out on a piece of paper and you highlight them when things are happening. And in mine, it's F to the 6th power, my faith, my family, my firm, right? My finances, my fitness, and my fun. If I have all of that written out and it's clear, I believe clarity precedes mastery. If I want to have the year of experiences, if I write them down every day, and again, we know the answer to this, but let's talk about it.
Yep.
I write them down every day and I view them, read them every day, versus people that put them, I've been guilty of this, write them down, have this great plan, and you put it in your top left drawer of your desk, and you don't see it again until like December 14th. And then you're like, oh, crap, right? I'm behind. Who's going to succeed? If you don't write anything down, I do write them down, and I do view them on my piece of paper. Who's going to win?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the person that keeps them in front of them, right? It keeps them as a destination, right? As this thing that I'm looking at. If I could show you my computer screen that I wake up to every single day, the screensaver is my purpose, my values, and my mission. Every day I wake up and I see those things, and they constantly subconsciously are moving into my life because they're written down in front of me and they're where I can see them. I may not give attention to them, read them, declare them, but I take them in every day. That begins to shape my subconscious. It begins to shape my beliefs, my thoughts. So then when something comes, it has to get filtered through that, because that's now the filter, the lens that I'm living my life out of. Right? So when you set your goals, your dreams, and you're specific, The SMART goals, SMART, they're specific, measurable, attainable,
Yeah.
right? But you set those and you write them and you put them where you can see them. I tell people you should fall in love with sticky notes,
Yeah.
because sticky notes are the best thing in the world. I've got sticky notes on my computer, right? They're just simple words. I don't need a whole storyline. I need a word to remind me of something,
Yep.
right?
That's right.
It's the book. I want to be a bestseller with the book, not because I want the title, but I want the message to reach as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So I know what it's going to take to do that. So I have a sticky note that says best-selling author, reaching the world with the message of being limitless. I just keep that in front of me. That's going to drive. So when something comes and tries to pull me away, that's sitting there. And I'm like, now I got to choose this, or am I going to chase this? But
That's so
I
funny.
will chase this other thing so much quicker if that isn't somewhere in my psyche that I'm continually holding it there. Right. And so, yes, the answer is simply yes. It's more than just writing it down. Some of us write, I say declare. Your words are what you speak. We're committed to what we confess, not what we think, but what we confess. I am going to be a best-selling author. I'm committed to that. When I say that, you hear that, and that goes into the atmosphere, holy crud.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to that accountability to myself than if I just think in my head, I want to be a best-selling author. And no one ever knows that. If I fail, who would know? No one. So I'm safe.
Yeah.
So it's exactly right.
So your sticky notes is my alarm. So if you could see my alarm on here, I've got different alarms. And so like the one at 5:52, for example, it goes off, and then the screen on my phone says choice, morning routine, right? It's my choice.
Love that.
So I can look at
Love
this and
that.
say, I'm going to hit snooze.
Yep.
And that's a choice, and that's okay.
Yes.
And trust me,
And
I
it's
do
okay.
it plenty of times, right? But it's a choice over my morning routine. The next one that goes off, so I have different times based on the week and when I need, because different things I got to do with kids and stuff. But the other one says watercolor. So that's I want to own a home at Watercolor down on 30A.
Stop.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop right there. So we lived in Rosemary, had a home in Rosemary forever. We sold it during COVID because we got a great offer, and we'd go down there 3-4 times a year. So we're looking at
Same.
Watercolor. My brother's building a home in Watercolor right now, and we've been in Alice. So we've been going to 30A for 10 years. So I'm sorry, all you listeners. We're taking a little, not 30 years. I'm sorry, for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Rosemary's only been around since like 95. So
yeah, it's crazy.
But that's our happy place. The beach,
Same here, man.
Rosemary, Alice, 30A.
Yes.
That's my happy place. Hey,
Same
listeners,
here.
I'm sorry about that. We just took a little divergence, but
They hear
if
me.
you haven't
Everybody
been
knows
to
me.
30A,
Knows Watercolor. Watercolor is my deal, man. And so, but my alarm says Watercolor, and
God, I love that.
because I want to have my home there, and I know right where it's at. And then another one says choice golf at 100. So I want to golf on my 100th birthday. So to your point, sticky notes, whether it's an alarm, if you need help with that, you need that motivation when you know your why, anyhow as possible, all these things, right? Put it on your alarm, put it on a sticky note. And then where we're going to go is we're going to go buy your book, Born Limitless by Rick Torrison, Crushing Limiting Beliefs, Cultivate an Infinite Mindset, and Unleash Your True Potential. Give me a 30-second blip on this book and why somebody needs to go buy it. Because they've just heard the whole damn story, right? Now it's everything we just talked about.
It's everything we've talked about is in there. The book is a bunch of my stories of where I came from, what I started with this podcast with, of my story that created limiting beliefs, and where they got interrupted and said, hey, is that normal? Do you want that? Right? And so the story is about my framework that talks about helping us identify that. And then how do we create roadmaps and build the process to our greatest success or significance? It's not a Christian book or a faith book, but it's based in the faith of who I am, that I believe in the greatness inside of people, that we were born with a destiny, a purpose, a future, and a hope in mind. And then here's what happens. Life happens.
Yeah.
Life happens. And when life happens, we start to build beliefs around that life, and we start settling for something less than. And my passion and desire is to help you tap back inside. You were born limitless. Whether you achieve it or not, it's a choice. Whether you make it or not is a choice. But how do we clear the road and the path to give you the greatest opportunity to make that choice, to actually experience something greater than what you've experienced?
Yeah.
And just to begin to believe there. So that book is all about that journey and that process and the stories of my life and others who have gone through that process. And I'm excited, because that's the core of my message. It's the core of my coaching. It's the core. I think it's personal before it's corporate. We have to deal with this. before we can
Amen
take
to
care of that. And we want to
Amen to
do
that.
this. We're all about business and out here, but this is either the rock or the sand. And I want this to be a rock so that when I build, it can stay and build a legacy that's going to live beyond me. But if this is sand, because I haven't paid attention to this, everything I do there is going to leave when I leave. When I'm done, it's gone. And I'm
so
not
powerful.
okay with that anymore. I'm not okay with that anymore. So that's it. And I am seeking to get the message out as far and wide. I would love for people to grab a copy or grab a copy for their family or their teams. It's a great leadership book for teams and stuff about, kind of setting new limitless beliefs and objectives and how to get there as an organization or as an individual. And they can get it at, if you go to bornlimitlessbook.com, that's where you can get the information. That puts you in the process. Or follow me on Instagram at Rick Torrison and stay up with all the things I'm doing. Those would be the two easiest ways to just get into my world. And from there, man, let's have fun together, right? Let's engage, let's participate. And like I started with you asking a question, I love to ask questions. Tell me your story. What's your limiting belief? What has held you back, or what have you overcome? Because when I hear that, I get excited because I'm encouraged then, right? Yeah. I have more faith now because your story of what you believe and how you did it. Okay, I can do that. I can take that step, right? Because I've heard someone else who took it. So anyways, that's the process, man. That's what it's about. And I'm excited.
Well, you should be excited, man. You got a ball of energy here, and great message, man. I've really enjoyed having you on the Circuit of Success. It's been an absolute great discussion. I've enjoyed it myself. I've got 2 pages of notes, so hopefully those listening have got some notes and some takeaways.
You and me both, man. I'm excited, and awesome. I can't wait to get your journal. So,
amen, man. Well, thanks so much for being on the Circuit of Success. It's been great having you, Rick.